Thank you for tuning into Rage Quit Radio, the live play series. I'm your host, the Run and Know, Mr. Joe. I'm joined today by Mike and Travis. Well, we're doing something that's a bit of a throwback. We're going to talk a little bit about SeaFall, because we just finished the Prologue game, because there are a lot of rules that we weren't all that, well, let's just say, adjusted to yet. So we wanted to play that Prologue off camera so we could get used to them, and at least have some folks with experience when we got around to playing the full version of this legacy game. A acclamation then. How about that, Trav? But despite the fact that the Prologue will have no or almost no lasting effects on the legacy playthrough, we did have leaders who got themselves completely lost. Well, that or very much so for
They
Trav's
literally went off the deep end, some of them.
The ships never were seen again, the leaders were lost all this time, and those leader cards were actually destroyed already. But that's about the only effect permanent for the legacy styling for what we have.
And we got to go and name some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we got to explore some islands. So, so far, I'm actually enjoying it thus far. I suck at it, but I'm enjoying it.
I mean, you did have a massive amount of money to throw around. He just wound up getting the last glory point needed to name
I named the last
Prologue.
one. Yeah, I named the last one.
Yeah,
He got 2, you got 1, and I got 1.
Sorry, timing.
So, SeaFall, for those people who have no bloody clue what this is, it is a completely original legacy game by Rob Daviau, published by Plaid Hat Games. To give you guys an idea of what's in this box, this is my copy of the game, so I can do this. So, yeah, there's a lot in there.
And it's pretty much very well crafted stuff,
yes.
too.
We've said it before, I'll say it again. My name is not Tom, and I don't drop components everywhere, because I ain't going to clean them up, so we're not doing that. But I'll let you see how heavy it is. It's essentially a 4X game, legacy style. We're working to figure out what the legacy part's going to wind up being.
Aside from just more islands.
Yeah.
Well, and from the little bit of the mechanics we went through with the Prologue, we did go and explore and unlock stuff on the islands, even before we start the first game. So we've already seen some of the legacy effects.
You are essentially in control of a province, trying to... wow, that's interesting on the back of the box. Tagline on the back here says, Unleash Hell. They must have known he was going to play.
Mr. Raid happy down there.
You can explore islands, you can raid them for resources, you can buy resources, you can build things, because the 4X is what? Explore, exploit, exterminate, and there's one other one.
Expand.
Expand.
And we can name some islands as our colonies, apparently.
Yes.
There is a blank space. We don't know how that's going to work yet.
Yeah. So, all in all, mechanically, the game is fairly simple, which is good, I think.
It just took us a while to wrap our heads around it, because I don't even think we have a legitimate reason why it took us a while to wrap our heads around it.
Well, this is the first game of this style that I've ever played. I've never played a 4X game before. So, I got an
played
excuse.
4X as a board game before.
Yeah, that's fair, because I played like Civ and things like that. I like the theme. I like the seafaring theme. And I actually kind of got that in the Prologue, that you are exploring and you are going out and doing these things. So, to me, that actually came across. This game gets some hate. And thus far, I'm not sure why. We'll figure it out.
Well,
and undoubtedly,
just to be
wind up
perfectly clear, we will definitely go and show you all of our salt, after each round of the game. The salt will flow, definitely. Salt is not a resource in the game, but is definitely a resource of the heart.
Yes. It has long been a resource of gamers the world over.
The heart, mind, and sanity.
So, I don't know, where do you want to kind of start with talking about it? We played the Prologue, which does not count as game 1. So, It's
Yeah,
just
we did it more because we wanted to try and make sure we understood the rules.
Right.
Because we were given the option of a prologue game that made, obviously not no impact, but very little impact.
It's actually going to have a mild amount of impact on the first game with the amount of exploration you guys went and did the first round through.
Yeah, but it doesn't really there's no lasting effects for the glory markers, any of the score tracking.
There's no score impact. There's no
there's a resource
impact.
diversity on the map, but there's not a resource diversity in terms of starting values for any of the provinces. And anyone who wasn't here for the prologue isn't being penalized at all.
So we should probably explain part of what we're talking about. There are a lot of resources in the game, right? This is a random player board for one of the factions we didn't pick. They all start the same. Even after the prologue, the only thing that changes on them is we named ours.
Pretty much.
And whoever comes in will get to name theirs.
And each province also has some flavor too. So
yes, there
is some shifting around of things.
Yep.
Just not statistic-wise.
Yes. Right. So you have fields where you can get gold. That is one resource. There is iron, spice, linen, and wood. Those are the 4 material goods resources. And then your leader, again, at the beginning of the game, they all start the same, have 2 resources unique to them, which are fortune and reputation. On the map, which I'm not going to pull the game board out of here to show it, but on the game board, the different islands allow you to gather the goods. And at the beginning of the game, there are 4 islands uncovered that we already know that they're there, and those 4 islands each have 1 resource available on them. And I suspect this was part of the point of doing the prologue, is
we populated those islands with more resource sites through exploration.
Well, y'all did.
Yeah, we did. He just rated them.
I just went and populated them with markers showing I came and took stuff.
To be fair, I think it's more like you depopulated the other But
accurate.
Accurate.
But because it's a prologue game, there's no lasting negative effects.
I appreciated the fact that the game actually gives an excuse for that too, by saying that this is years prior to game 1.
Right. It broke the peace, and we've been probably squabbling for quite a while we rebuilt our fleets, because, well, our fleets all got lost too.
Yeah, presumably.
Along with all the leaders.
Yes.
With cards we got to destroy.
Yeah.
Good times.
I am going to say one thing that does disappoint me about the legacy aspect that is fairly clear with the way this game is designed is we only have 2 ships. Period. There does not seem to be a way or any indication from what is present that we could get a 3rd ship.
Who knows? And one of the things is about legacy games in general. We played through Pandemic Legacy, and they're still doing
Risk Legacy every once in a while when I can get everybody. Or nearly everybody.
Well, someday you'll just go and run it with whoever you have on hand.
Yeah, that might be the day where I head up to Empire Games and say, hey, y'all get up here. If you're not up here, we're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling in random crowd members.
But the thing with
Crab members?
Crowd.
It's like, crab people?
Yeah, Crab Clan, because we already had Craig Clan as part of SeaFall.
Suffice to say, I picked the blue faction. But that's part destroying stuff is part and parcel of a legacy game, and with the legacy games we played, I'm not going to try and spoil the other legacy games, folks. But if you played Pandemic Legacy, you know that there's something that shows up in the game that there is 0 outward appearance that this could possibly happen.
Right.
If you've played Risk Legacy, you know that there's things that occur that there's 0 outward appearance could happen.
Right.
So I will give a certain amount of leeway. I'm expecting some goofy crap to happen that does not normally happen.
Oh, I have no doubt.
So, who's to say that one of those, there are 6 sealed boxes in here. Who's to say one of those 6 sealed boxes doesn't have new ships for everybody?
Because I'm looking at the aesthetic design of these province boards.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of, and already the high space requirement of this game, I do not see how you would have another ship worth of space to be provided.
Just include a card for every ship. It could happen. It might not. Who knows? You probably
I'm
know.
pessimistic about this because one thing that I would want to do over the course of a legacy game where it would make sense is I would like to build up my fleet further. I don't necessarily want to upgrade every ship. I want a third ship so I could have extra support actions and such.
I can see that.
A fourth ship that's a dedicated hold ship to get all those goods that I buy, explore, or maybe I raid later and bring them back.
You can go and upgrade your ships to go and fulfill that role.
Yeah, but one dedicated to the transport while the others are still doing the other actions.
He wants a fleet. He doesn't want 2 ships. He wants a fleet. You know, some of us are happy to have a couple of boats. He wants the frickin' Spanish Armada. So
look, I have a Roman-inspired faction. If I can't have legions on the ground, I want a fleet in the sea.
So says the explorer.
And how did the Romans explore? Well, they did kind of
by force. What did you think, Trev?
I think the game mechanically is very simple. The fact that basically you have... I will be intrigued to go and see at what points they go and put the glory breakpoints for the end of the game, and to see how that compares with the actual, rotation of the years. Because basically, you get 6 turns, like there's 6 rounds before you go into a winter phase where everything repopulates. And I'm just intrigued to go and see how that mechanic really plays out.
Well, to put in perspective, we were in, I think, round 5 of 6 when the game ended. And the glory breakpoint for the first actual game, I think, is 11.
It's 11.
So we would definitely have hit 1 winter at least.
Yeah, because you would have had...
Because I was pacing out at about 1 victory point a turn on average. I think when it ended the game the game when it ended, I was at 6 victory points on that turn. But it wasn't likely that I was going to get another victory point on the next turn. Yeah. But
did you have enough to buy?
I probably raided something. But.
Yeah, you would have raided something. I would have sniped the cheap iron treasure, grammar, and then explored. So we would have wound up tied at the end of that round, probably around 7. But yeah, averaging across the year, if winters counting winters as years, 1 glory point a turn, barring advisors, seems to be about roughly what you're looking at.
And I think that's going to jump up a lot as the game progresses.
Especially as when you get you a stack of advisors that you can just start going through every single turn, because the initial advisors that we are able to go and purchase, you literally get to use them for a turn, and then they are exhausted. They go and get flipped face down, and you ain't going to go and use their awesome stuff. But the turns that they were there, they felt awesome.
Yeah. And
there's several that we didn't see in that first spread that actually give you an additional glory for fulfilling a certain action type or a certain action period. And we obviously didn't get to play with any of those, which would have accelerated glory gains as well.
And we'll have to see what the new milestones are, because fulfilling those milestones
also gives glory, I think.
Gave a lot of none of the ones we had.
That's because it was Prologue, not worried about glory. But some of them probably.
But they gave a lot of windfall effects as far as getting additional.
Oh yeah, you got plenty of gold, which is why you would have been easily able to afford. Yeah. If I didn't have the iron to snipe the cheap iron treasure on my turn, you would have gotten that treasure straight up.
I like the mechanics of the game so far. Like you said, very simple. It's the decisions you make. So there's some dice rolling involved, which, like dice, you got to have some sort of luck in there somewhere. It gives us hope that Coop can lose.
That's why I try to have as many dice as I can to do simple deeds.
Coop has discovered that there are fewer enmity stickers, permanent enmity stickers per faction than there are actual enmity spots on the board.
We may see a trend to see if he can maximize that.
So there is the very outlying potential that you can go to war enough times that eventually the world stops caring.
So,
unless there's a rat to that effect, at which point Trav will be sad.
Or someone will be sad if they go for that play style.
What do you think of the aesthetics?
The aesthetics are strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like the character portraits for the leaders are almost like reminiscent of paintings of the era.
Mm-hmm.
The sketches of the advisors looks like somebody was sketching in a journal or notebook or a captain's log, just people of importance. And I mean, they went for the realism style with the islands and such, and it all works because it meshes together, giving you a nice aesthetic draw without anything that's overly goofy or overly distracting.
I like the component quality. Nothing in here feels cheap, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, those player boards could have been like a thin piece of plasticized
They
paper.
really could have been. I mean, the thing
But
is,
they're thick cardboard.
the thing is, with a legacy game where you're going to be ripping crap up and destroying components as the game goes on, the cardstock itself, it's not my preferred. I prefer cardstock in games to be more of a playing card, like a poker card quality, where they're more of a plastic. They hold up better. But for something like this, it makes perfect good sense whether or not, because if you ever tried to rip a poker card, that sucks. But
yeah, magicians make it look easy, but there's reasons for that.
So yeah, they use cheap cards. So among other things, or scissors, or razor blades, or whatever else. But regardless, it's good quality stuff. I like that. It's a little bland with the color palette. There's a part of me that wishes that they had used more than just browns and earth tones. Maybe it works for the setting and all that. Just personal preference. I might have used like some blues or something like that because it is the sea after all. But I like the little astrolabe turn counter thing. That works out pretty well. The tokens are easily readable, easily distinguishable. You can tell what's what. Thank you. Played too many games where you can't tell one token from another. So, how about you?
As far as the card quality and the art quality and everything,
The look, the feel.
Oddly enough, based on how much work they went and put into everything else, the ships are actually underwhelming. Because the ships look like just little plastic ships from a battleship game.
I'm tempted to paint them.
I don't know if that would be enough.
It might not. And the reason I say I'm tempted, I probably won't, because it's a legacy game. We're going to play through the number of playthroughs and then it's done. But there's a small part of me that if this were a long-term permanent game, I'd probably paint the buggers. But yeah, I can see that. The ships, I mean, they don't feel like crap, but the design is what, to me, is what's underwhelming.
They could have also... What they've chosen is effectively a frigate and a flute. For anyone who actually cares about ships from that type of era. But the way they made the two ship tokens, I almost wish they had gone a little bit further in diversity of design.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you take a quick glance at the board, you may not catch which ship is which. That's true. And they could have afforded to be a little bit more diverse, either in physical style or do it so that they were obvious with like two-tone colors.
I would have liked pre-painted stuff would have been nice. I would have liked actually them having different designs for each province because they're color coded. But something a little bit, I know why they don't. It's to keep costs down. Same thing why they're not painted. But
true.
And it's not a cheap game. It's about $70-something dollars.
Given the way that we are provinces that have all been very close neighbors, and we had the extended peace, I'm not so sure that would have been the technological differences to warrant with their setting and story having drastically different designs for each province.
You could do slightly different stuff. You could tweak it a little
Different
bit.
figureheads on the ship bows,
like
maybe.
that. But I can tell you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to opening boxes. That's what you always look forward to in a legacy game, is what's going to come. The one thing that this game does do very well is set a tone. The captain's book with all the flavor text and all of that.
You have to read that stuff out loud. You
Yes.
have to. Otherwise, you're just losing out on so much flavor of the game. Just go and read the backs of all of the different
Province cards.
faction boards, and just that alone goes and sets a tone for each faction.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that the game itself, mechanically, I've played stuff that's probably tighter than this. And I've played stuff that's doesn't take quite as much of a learning curve-ish thing to me than this. And I can see where some people would crap on the mechanics of the game, and I can see where some people would crap on other elements of the game. I honestly think you play this game for the story behind it, and for the flavor, because that's where we started cracking up and having the most fun, was actually reading the stuff.
True.
That's where this game stands out so far.
Or the unconscious realization of what was coming next.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like after I'd gone and named, an island once, the next milestone that Mike went and read, basically almost by name called out the name of the island that I had just went and had written a name down on. It was just absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
Written a name down on and had already rated several times.
The
10 out of 10 would rate again.
But no, I'm enjoying it so far. I think the story is the strong suit. That's what I'm looking forward to. If you have a local Books A Million, they may have it on sale. That's where I got mine. But I'm looking forward to that. Most of anything is the story aspect. Read the stuff out loud. That's where they did their work on this, was that captain's book and all the flavor.
And it could have been much simpler in that captain's book. It was definitely a design decision, because it could have said, this is going to be spice, this is going to be iron. Instead, it has choose your own adventure elements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was a single explorer action that we did that was not offered a choice of how to respond, and that choice dictated what we got.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We knew in most cases something we'd get, whether it be like the type of good, but we didn't know if we were going to get that good and enmity for pissing somebody off.
Right.
Or in your case, you got instead of getting a linen good, you got an upgrade immediately.
Upgrade to a ship.
So I mean, you get some inclinations, and you can get an idea of what might be, like the enmity one. It was kind of written clear that you might piss off the locals, and lo and behold, you pissed off the locals.
And
So
there's a mechanic for that.
It definitely has some balancing points of, it's not going to be a gotcha choice, I don't think.
But
nothing we've seen has been a gotcha choice.
It's Rabdavio. There will be one
Probably.
somewhere.
But don't expect that for every choice. Don't expect that for many choices. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They're going to be rare when they happen. Might suck, but
I will say this: play the prologue.
yeah,
There's going to be a temptation, I think, for a lot of people who play this game to skip it. Don't. Number one, the prologue sets the plate. We're going to go in, whoever the next two people that join us are, and there's a couple of people that will probably be jumping in and joining us for future games, because it is a 5-player game, and the game has mechanics to address people jumping into the campaign as well as to address people jumping out. But with that said, those people are not going to come in with the same, I think, excitement level for the story that the three of us will have going into the next game, because we played through the prologue.
Yeah.
And we played through that story. It does certain stuff to help seed the game, so to speak, with more stuff. Populating resources. But it is also one of the coolest ways to learn a game I've seen out of any board game. It is a prologue game. It's designed for you to learn the game.
Yep.
So mission accomplished.
I mean, That's one of those few things that there is no follow-up. It is
Yeah.
a complete agreement. It's the strength of the Prologue game. And it's the strength of the design for quality for the game that they included it that way. I wish more games would.
Mm-hmm.
Although certain games, like a Prologue game for Pandemic Legacy would have been play game of Pandemic.
Yeah.
So it definitely is one of those things where this
Well,
game was designed with that in mind, but
basically
you
the
can't apply it
first-
to every Legacy game.
Basically, the first session of Pandemic is play a
just
game of
play
Pandemic Legacy.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, play a game of Pandemic.
Yeah.
True.
And Risk, out of the box, is we're
Risk.
playing a game of Risk.
Right.
Slightly different victory condition, that was the only thing.
Yeah.
But any other final thoughts about what we know of SeaFall so far?
Looking forward to it.
Again,
I think that's a universal.
I enjoyed it, and it's not a terribly stressful game. I felt.
Not until you're rolling 2 dice and you're hoping to not lose a ship. We had luck on our dice, but that may not always be a case. And when ships start sinking, or people start raiding other people's ships and sinking them and taking goods, there might be a little bit more stress,
I suspect there will be an escalation of tension in this game.
which is represented well by the entity token system.
Yes. I expect this in part because we're playing with Coop. And people will get raided and attacked.
I mean,
so
it depends if we go and play with Justin or not, because definitely people will get raided then.
that's true. That is very much true. Well, I know William is supposed to be joining us for this game, which again means people will probably get raided. And I'm going to keep my mouth shut who the 5th person is supposed to be that's going to join us. But it's an RQR original, so if he can get a free weekend, so
Some things are harder to do than others.
Sure.
But I think that wraps up this little insight into SeaFall, since we'll get to the actual gameplay videos hopefully sooner than later, but
hopefully yes.
as with every other Legacy game, it involves trying to get the same crew regularly.
Yeah.
So we don't really have a set time span for how these episodes are going to fall onto the channel, but we will try and get to do them as often as possible because, well, we're looking forward to playing it and getting it played as often as possible.
Yes. This makes the 3rd storytelling / legacy game that we've got ongoing because we've got Risk Legacy, we've got SeaFall, and we've got Time Stories.
True.
Which is not a legacy game per se, but
it's a storytelling
game.
Very prominent.
Jesus Christ, Time Stories. And we're going to wind up with Pandemic Legacy Season 2 probably before the end of the year.
I have a feeling that Risk Legacy is going to be the one that is going to maybe never actually get to the exciting.
I say we just get a bunch of people together and say to heck with it, and just here's 5 guys, play. So
I am leaning that way, but it also involves free time for me that isn't already involved in the other games.
that's true.
So difficulties still arise. Anyway, that's it for this episode of RQR. Thank you for joining us. If you feel like supporting us so we can afford more games like SeaFall, whether or not we get them on sale, they still tend to run a fair bit. Feel free to check us out over on Cafe Press. Check out our Instagram, Periscope, which is still being run.
Yeah, I didn't do any Periscope videos last week, folks. I don't know when that is in relation to when you're watching this, but
apologies nonetheless.
But apologies nonetheless for the week we missed. Hurricane Irma was a thing, and it knocked out our power and our internet, which is also why some other Wednesday videos didn't go up like they should have. But
unfortunately, we're also looking at, to give you a rougher idea of the dates, we're looking at Jose and now, was it Maria?
Maria.
Yeah, Maria.
Yeah.
There's more
it's gonna be
hurricanes
fun times.
headed our way.
We're going to go West Side Story on them.
On that note, or check us out on Facebook where we'll give you as many updates as we can, because if something happens because of hurricanes, usually somebody might be able to get up to Facebook and post. Even if that means calling somebody on their cell phone while they're out of town.
Yeah.
So that they can post onto the page. That said, I've been your Run in the Know, Mr. Joe, joined by Mike and Trav, and we'll see you all later.